Freya, my beloved wife, came into this world a few years younger than me, but radiated eternal youth, beyond the control of time, and looked no older than 35 years. Her captivating charm and delightful disposition surpassed anything I have ever met. She had an amazing ability to charm any interlocutor, being able to easily formulate exactly what he wanted to hear. I've always thought that her personality is an invaluable asset. In her presence, the conversation flowed easily and naturally, and there was never a shortage of interesting dialogues. It is noteworthy that she held the prestigious position of head of accounting at a well-known hospital in the city center and had an impressive diploma of a certified accountant. Dealing with mind-boggling amounts of money was a regular part of her job, because the hospital's annual volume of operations exceeded $1 billion, and all of them were carefully handled under her supervision. Given such a huge responsibility, she often had to work late, and I understood and respected that. Over time, I've come to terms with the fact that working late is just part of her job, and I've never felt the need to ask her questions about it. From the moment we first met in college, I knew she was special. At that time, she was just starting her way, and I was taking several courses to get a real estate license. She instantly charmed me, but I did not delve into her past, because it had no meaning for our relationship. Our exclusive acquaintance lasted almost a year, and in the end, it led to a significant event, a ring, and a sincere marriage proposal. Our wedding was very beautiful and was accompanied by an unforgettable honeymoon. After returning from her honeymoon, Freya continued to receive higher education, although with a slight delay due to the appearance of our two wonderful children. Fortunately, I was earning a decent income, which allowed us to hire a nanny who helped Freya complete her studies. Thanks to her dedication and hard work, she successfully graduated and quickly got a job at a well-known accounting firm in Dallas. When our children grew up and started going to school, the nanny continued to stay with us. Freya made great efforts and eventually got a promotion. Her outstanding abilities attracted the attention of another accounting firm, and as a result, she was hired at a reputable hospital where she now holds her position. She was promoted for several years until she reached the position of head of the accounting department. 5 years have passed since then, and she is still succeeding in her role, happy and satisfied. As a licensed real estate broker specializing in commercial real estate, I have the honor to work with 4 different agencies. My portfolio includes an impressive collection of real estate not only in Dallas, but also in Oklahoma City and Little Rock. Therefore, I often travel between these 3 cities. Our children, Leo and Zara, bring great joy to Freya and me, because they constantly show wonderful qualities and make us feel proud. San Francisco. Meanwhile, Zara continues to attend school in Dallas and is looking forward to graduating in May and then getting married in June. I have an optimistic hope that Zara will continue to work with me after the wedding and contribute to my business. Given that Zara has many wonderful qualities inherited from her mother, she has a set of skills that can be effectively implemented in the market, which will ensure her success. Looking back a year ago, I remember sitting in a Starbucks and out of habit dial Freya's number around 4:30 in the afternoon. This daily ritual served to find out her expected time of arrival home, as well as to discuss how we would have dinner in the evening, go to a restaurant, order a takeaway or cook it at home. Since today was Friday, today had a special meaning. Every Friday evening, Freya and I have a tradition of going to a restaurant. We have been happily married for 25 years, and it's amazing that on the fingers of one hand you can count the number of times when we didn't go out on a Friday night. Even if we were busy at work, we always tried to finish and leave quickly. Taking work from home was not a common occurrence for us, although sometimes we had to return to the office on weekends to perform urgent tasks. However, Friday night was sacred and meant only for us. When I arrived at Starbucks in the evening, I realized that I had arrived a little earlier than I had planned with Freya, so I decided to treat myself to a cup of coffee while waiting. There was a hospital across the street, a constant reminder of the importance of health and wellness. To my left towered an impressive-sized garage, which served as a noticeable landmark. The hospital was connected to the garage by a pedestrian bridge that towered over a busy road. There were 5 exits from the garage, and 2 dedicated lanes were intended exclusively for those leaving. Ignoring the surrounding environment, I managed to notice how a large Chrysler 300 drove out of the garage and stopped at a traffic light in front of a Starbucks. But what really caught my attention was that Freya was in the passenger seat. It seemed strange to me because she usually informs me about any meetings outside the hospital. In response, I grabbed the phone and dialed Freya's office number, hoping to talk to her, but I was informed that she had already left. Having decided to reach her, I decided to call Freya directly. After 3 calls, she picked up the phone. "Freya, where are you?" I asked urgently. She replied, "I'm in my office, swamped with an important report that needs to be completed." Confused by her answer, I continued, "But I thought you were at Starbucks celebrating a big sale and planning to take me out to dinner at our favorite restaurant and then spend the night there." To my disappointment, she replied, "I can't do it today, but can we reschedule the meeting for another day? Can I get a reprieve? Are you at the Starbucks across from the hospital right now? I thought you were in Oklahoma City." I confirmed that I really am at Starbucks, and I didn't have to go today. I couldn't help but wonder if she knew I noticed her. I offered to bring her a cup of her favorite coffee and salad so she could focus on her report. She hastily replied with words I didn't understand, but then mentioned that one of the girls had left her a sandwich and a soft drink. Freya offered me a snack on the way home and assured me that she would join me as soon as possible. I looked into the Find Phone app and noticed that their car had already pulled up to the Hilton Hotel, a well-known address that I was well familiar with. I asked, "Are you in your office now?" She confirmed it, and I replied, "If you don't need my company, I'll meet you at home. I can finish the job faster by myself." She agreed and promised to meet later, after which she hung up. When I remembered our life together, it seemed like a fairy tale to me. Money has never been a problem for us. We both drove luxury cars thanks to my financial support. Our residence was a large ranch-style house located on 5 acres of land, with a carefully manicured yard, which was looked after by professionals. The house we called our own was so well-groomed and picturesque that it resembled a beautiful park rather than just a dwelling. Our connection went beyond the scope of everyday work. We were inseparable in our free time. It was obvious to anyone who watched us that we deeply loved each other and were completely devoted to each other. Freya, in particular, always reserved every dance exclusively for me, not allowing any man to take her hand, even if I assured her that it was permissible. She was simply expressing her reluctance, stating that she did not want another man's touch. Her loyalty and devotion were unwavering, and I never had even a hint of jealousy. The idea that might be unfaithful never crossed my mind, because our intimate life was incredibly intense and satisfying. I was fiercely loyal and devoted to one woman, and Freya was well aware of my firm position against infidelity. Despite the fact that I felt sorry for her, I believed that she was contented and happy. I didn't know that if Freya wasn't satisfied with our relationship, she would seek satisfaction elsewhere. When I realized this, I was overcome by a strong emotional devastation. It seemed that my whole world collapsed under my feet. Worried people came up to me, asking if I was all right. In the end, I gathered the strength to get up and go home. When Freya returned, I found myself sitting alone in the dark. Curious, she asked why I decided to stay in a dark room. "I've had an incredibly difficult day, and I feel very upset." "Okay, what would you like to know next?" Although we never quarreled, I was sure that my reaction was justified. "When you called earlier, you were talking about your excitement about making an important deal, so what caused such a sudden change in your mood?" "Well, I recently learned extremely unpleasant news." "What could be so terrible?" "If you don't know, then there's no need to ask." I got up from my seat and poured myself a generous glass of brandy, after which I retired to the office to sit down. I decided to skip dinner, as the brandy quickly affected my senses. After spending about half an hour in the office, I decided to go to the guest bedroom to get some rest. But sleep wouldn't come, and I tossed and turned all night. Thoughts of the betrayal that my spouse committed in relation to our marriage did not give me peace. Doubts tormented me. Is this the first time she's been cheating on me? How long have I not noticed his actions? One thing was for sure, I didn't want to suffer the humiliation of being made a fool of. In the end, I got up after a restless night spent without sleep. After taking a shower, I went to the kitchen in search of much-needed coffee. To my surprise, Freya was already sitting at the table and greeted me first. "Good morning. How did you sleep in the spare bedroom?" "I slept terribly last night. I barely managed to get an hour's sleep if you're interested." "Can you tell me what's bothering you so much?" I looked at her, completely taken aback by such a meaningless question, and finally answered. "Freya, would you like to discuss something specific with me?" "What do you mean?" Are you upset because I had to work on Friday night and we couldn't go to dinner? When did work become more important than family? We used to prioritize spending Friday nights together and going somewhere, and now it seems that work has become more enjoyable than the time spent with me, and it hurts. I asked, "Who is he?" Her expression became puzzled, and it became clear that she did not intend to give an answer. Reluctantly, she got up and started making fresh coffee, clearly trying to evade the answer. "But I saw you. I even called your office, but they told me that you had already left. I knew you'd gone to the Hilton. How could you betray us like that?" Betray me? Betray our family? I believe that we meant more to each other than just an illicit affair. I'm sorry. I never wanted any of this to happen. I've been struggling with this for over a year. As a result, I succumbed to weakness, which led me to a state of complete confusion. David Alexander, this is my boss. I didn't want to hurt you. We have taken all measures so that you will never find out about our carelessness, and I deeply regret it. It is important to note that my position on infidelity has always been very clear. Unfortunately, our marriage has come to an end. The pain I am experiencing is incomparable because I was betrayed not only by my closest person, but also by my beloved and dear person, my spouse. We have always shared everything about our lives, and I could not even imagine that such an unthinkable event would ever happen for us. I'm not sure that I can continue to live. If it weren't for our children, I know which direction I would be leaning towards. Freya saw my great pain and was moved to tears. Despite her sympathy, I didn't look for pity from her. Eventually, she came to her senses and asked if there was anything she could do to save our marriage. To tell the truth, the answer is no. But in my current state, I am not able to think clearly and make a final decision. But perhaps you can take some action to self-esteem. First, it is necessary to put an end to treason immediately. You should consider bringing a harassment case against your lover if you think he used you to his advantage. It's important to do the right thing, even if it could lead to both of you losing your jobs. After that, it is advisable to resign from your current job and start a lawsuit against the for you. As a CPA, finding another good job shouldn't be a problem. After thinking about it for a while, she expressed doubt that she would agree to all this. I stood up, indicating my intention to leave the kitchen. "Where are you going?" "What is it?" she asked. "I'm leaving. I will inform you about my location later. Tomorrow I will consult with a lawyer and try to resolve the situation as smoothly as possible given the circumstances. Be sure, both you and your partner will face the consequences of this situation. I can assure you of that. I won't be naive. Later today I plan to inform the children about the fact of their mother's infidelity. But let's think about the welfare of our children. After all, they are an integral part of our family, aren't they?" "Yes, it is. But I don't want them to suffer from all this." "Maybe it's too late to worry about that now. They're already adults and deserve to know the truth. Your concern seems to be related to your own reputation. Having said that, I have already packed 2 suitcases, packed my work things, and loaded them into the car. When I returned to the kitchen, I found Freya still sitting at the table with tears streaming down her face. "Freya," I said softly, "please do everything I asked you to do. If you want to talk, I'm ready to sit down and discuss our marriage." I assured her that I would inform her of my whereabouts and left without further ado. When I left, the thought did not leave me. Will I ever be able to enter my house again? I've booked a room for 2 weeks. Wanting to keep Freya up to date, I sent her a text message indicating the place of residence. I began to doubt my actions, to reflect on why I did what I did. But as they say, old habits are ineradicable. The next day was Sunday, and I found myself in my room, immersed in reflection and self-pity. It became clear to me that it was necessary to talk to the children, and I hastily wrote a message in which I urged them to be present when discussing important, albeit unpleasant news. To my delight, they both responded quickly and asked me to call them immediately. Having plucked up the courage, I told them the grim news that their mother had betrayed our trust and had been having a constant love affair for the past few months. Naturally, they were shocked and tried to figure out how I managed to find out the truth. Honesty prevailed, and I shared the details with them. Despite their broken hearts, they assured me of their unwavering support. I was inundated with numerous questions, but I had few solutions. I informed them about my move and temporary accommodation in a hotel located near our former place of residence. Unfortunately, in the end, we said goodbye. Soon after, Freya approached me with a question about how I could manipulate our children against her. I strongly denied these accusations, claiming that her own actions had harmed our children, which they expressed. I said directly about my intention to tell them the truth without involving her friends and parents. This responsibility lies solely with her, and I am that she will be able to come up with an excuse for my departure. Nevertheless, it is important for her to understand that the truth is always revealed in due time. Just as I was finishing my phone conversation with her, there was a light knock on the door of the room. I hurried to open the door and saw my daughter Zara standing on the threshold with a worried expression on her face. Without saying a word, she hugged me tightly, and tears welled up in both of our eyes. It was a comfort that someone understood my pain, and I was grateful to her for that. We settled down in the living room and seemed to pour out our souls to each other for hours. Zara was eager to know all the smallest details, but unfortunately, I couldn't provide much information. But nevertheless, she stubbornly supported me, assuring me that we would find answers together. In the end, Zara made a decision. She announced her intention to visit her mother in search of answers that I could not find. It was a serious task, but I trusted her opinion and knew that she had enough stamina to cope with it. A few hours later, a message came from Zara that demanded my attention. She insisted that I contact our mother because there was so much more to this story than I knew. With apprehension and curiosity, I reluctantly dialed Freya's number. Zara was visiting you, and she asked me to contact you and talk. I assured her that I would fulfill that promise, and here I am talking to you. But I have to warn you that what I'm about to say is going to be painful. Are you absolutely sure you want to hear this? Yes, you told Zara that she felt it was necessary for me to know that, so let's continue. And she started talking about her extramarital affairs. At first I didn't dare to listen, but over time I became an active participant in this conversation. The story was really painful to listen to. The man who turned out to be extremely attractive is younger than Freya by more than 10 years, and me by more than 15. I was determined to hold him accountable for putting my marriage in jeopardy. There is nothing surprising in the fact that Freya entered into an intimate relationship with him, but this could not justify the fact that she was unfaithful to me, not once, but constantly for several months. I couldn't forget about this betrayal. I turned to my lawyer Sam, who also turned out to be a personal friend of mine. I called him at his place of residence and explained the situation, after which he advised me to meet him at his office the next day. Sam was always professional in his work, even with friends, and I understood that his services were not cheap. I shared with my intentions to file for divorce from Freya, hand her the documents, and then give her a 90-day period for reflection. I urgently demanded to take immediate action against her lover. I insisted on filing a lawsuit against him for intimate harassment and also sought to initiate proceedings against the hospital. There must be moral provisions in hospitals, especially in cases where people in power exploit their subordinates. They must acknowledge their share of responsibility. Even if the trial had not progressed, he would still have attracted unwanted attention. In search of a solution, I turned to Sam and asked if there was a way to discreetly inform her lover's wife about his affair. Sam, as befits a resourceful lawyer, considered all possible options. I called David Alexander's address and talked to his wife, posing as an accountant from the Hilton Hotel. My goal was to find out about the various credit card expenses incurred over the past 3 months, and, in addition, to explain the existence of a corporate tariff that could save David a significant amount of money in the future. Within just 10 seconds, David's wife quickly figured out the situation, and, no doubt, also became enraged. About an hour later, Freya called me and asked why I had already disgraced David's family. She asked if I was at work and if I had accepted any of her offers. Indeed, now I am at my workplace, but my thoughts are still occupied with your act. I must inform you that I have already met with Sam and directly asked him to postpone the start of the divorce process until I assess your intentions, and I sincerely wish you a happy life. Without waiting for an answer, I abruptly interrupted the conversation, overcome by a feeling of emptiness. The last glimmer of hope for some kind of redemption disappeared into thin air. Freya didn't want to consider any of my suggestions. After that, I immediately contacted Sam and instructed him to hand Freya the divorce papers and speed up the process without any hesitation. I came to the bank to split our accounts, since we always had a common account, which received the salaries of both. We'd never tried to split our money into separate accounts before. I split everything equally, opening a new account in my own name only and getting new credit cards. I contacted my place of work to transfer my accounts to another broker and took a 30-day vacation. I wanted to escape and find clarity, and I chose Jamaica as my destination. Sam acted swiftly with incredible efficiency. The next day, Freya was charged with adultery, and then she appeared in court. David Alexander, along with the hospital, also appeared in court. Although I wasn't completely sure if I had a case against Alexander or the hospital, I found solace in this situation. It seemed unlikely that Freya would resist or dispute the divorce. To keep those who needed information up to date, I made it clear that I would be absent for the next 30 days, not being sure of the availability of email and cellular communication. I bought beach clothes and a reliable pair of sneakers before leaving. It seemed to me that I was running away, but then I wondered what exactly I was trying to escape from. In Jamaica, in an unstable marriage, I found solace in the joys of the island. Taking advantage of the opportunity to lead a healthier lifestyle, I devoted my morning to jogging on the beach, gradually increasing my endurance. At first my runs were short, but 2 weeks later I triumphantly covered 3 miles miraculously, the excess weight disappeared, and I felt rejuvenated. Plunging into the warm, sunny embrace, I enjoyed my newfound, bronze beach enthusiasm. Interested in the local real estate market, I came across surprisingly affordable properties, which contrasted sharply with the exorbitantly high prices in Dallas. Thinking about retirement soon, at the age of 53, it seemed temptingly real. Despite the separation of our accounts, I found myself the owner of a significant amount of money and without any financial obligations. The sale of the family home will also contribute to the replenishment of my funds. After careful consideration, I decided to use some of the money as collateral for a charming 2-bedroom bungalow located on the seashore. The convenient location near shops, restaurants, and bars made it an ideal choice. This move allowed me to detach myself from the world, which became a much-needed respite for a person accustomed to a stressful life. But I understood that sooner or later I would have to return to Dallas to complete the trial, although I did not hope for a positive outcome of the lawsuit. I needed to check what was going on. I had to close my bank accounts and transfer money, and I also wanted to see my children, especially since Zara's wedding was only a few days away. I made the first call to Zara, who immediately answered. "Dad, I'm so glad to hear from you. Where have you been? What is it?" she asked. I replied, "I have become a beach bum, and this will be my new profession. But I came back for your wedding. Is everything going according to plan?" Zara reassured me. "Yes, it's Saturday in a week and everything is ready. Don't worry. Mom has been helping me a lot since she quit her job. Mom made a decision." "Dad, she made that decision on that fateful Tuesday, right after you left her, and that despicable man in the hospital was brought to court the very next day. If only she could have found a suitable lawyer on Monday, she would have done it then." I felt uneasy. Why didn't she let me know? "Dad, where have you been all this time? Did you have any means of communication, for example, a mobile phone or email? She has tried countless times to contact you to let you know that she is ready for anything." I didn't know how to react to this news. The simple answer is that there was no cellular connection or email where I was. To be honest, I just turned on my mobile phone for the first time. It turned out that I received a lot of messages and emails. In addition, Dad, for the last month my mom has been going to a psychologist twice a week, trying to regain her former appearance. Most of the time I am with her, as she is in a fragile state and really needs someone's support. I understand your point of view, but our marriage is already a thing of the past. I'm not sure I can trust her completely again, especially considering the incredible intimacy she shared with her lover. Considering that the best I can offer suits me, but does not excite her, I wonder why she decided to come back to me at all. Mom adores you, and I think the question of intimacy is no longer worth it. I'll try to talk to your mom, maybe today, although I can't guarantee anything. It seems that our marriage cannot be restored, but be sure that at your wedding we will be one. I am determined to make sure that nothing spoils my child's special day." After the phone call, I stopped by Sam's office to find out how our court cases were progressing. The divorce process was in full swing, and in just 30 days the judge had to officially announce our divorce. But the two remaining court cases presented a completely separate problem. After his dismissal and impending divorce, David Alexander's life seemed absolutely priceless. In addition, the hospital refused to take any responsibility. Sam informed me that Freya has filed lawsuits against both sides, and in his opinion, her chances of success are much higher than ours. I advised him to drop our case against Alexander, but advised him not to close the case against the hospital in order to monitor their actions. The upcoming preliminary hearing was only 2 weeks away. After leaving Sam's office, I headed to my workplace. I informed the office manager about my retirement plans and my decision not to return. Although I was not a wealthy person, life in Jamaica was affordable, and I could live inexpensively for a considerable period of time. In addition, we still had funds from the sale of the house. I needed to discuss this with Freya, as she was still living in the house. Thus, a few weeks later I drove up to my house for the first time. The last time I was here, I wasn't sure I'd be back. When I parked the car, Freya opened the front door and greeted me. "Hi Roy, you look amazing, tanned, and you've also lost weight." Yes, the past 4 weeks have been a real transformation for me. I noticed that none of my old clothes fit me anymore, which is a clear indication of the changes that have happened to me. When we gathered in the kitchen, Freya kindly brewed fresh coffee, setting the stage for the upcoming important conversation. Frankly, I do not know where to start talking about our upcoming divorce, which should be finalized in just 30 days. Among the numerous issues that we have to solve, the central place is occupied by the division of property, including our cherished home. As for our house, I must admit, I didn't really think about its fate. Perhaps we could consider selling it, although the thought of parting with the place that has been our refuge since the first days of marriage makes me sad. Alternatively, would you like to buy my part and stay here? No, I don't want to. The house is too spacious for one tenant, filled with many cherished memories, mostly pleasant ones. Accordingly, I can't stay here, so it became necessary to put it up for sale. Do you know any reliable real estate agents? I am sure that I will find a realtor, although I will not be able to personally monitor the sale of our beloved house since I recently applied for retirement. After Zara's wedding, I plan to return to Jamaica and settle there. This is a place where I truly thrive without having either a cellular connection or access to email. Living in complete isolation from reality in this serene environment brings me great joy. Thanks to daily physical activity and a healthy diet, I successfully achieved my goal. I became physically healthy and lost excess weight, which bothered me for a long time. These achievements were the result of my constant efforts. Now I am interested to know about your aspirations. What are your plans for the future? As for me personally, I don't have any concrete plans at the moment. Right now, I'm focused on taking every day for what it is and trying to overcome the devastating impact I've had on our marriage. But I am sure that in the end, I will find solace if I find an apartment in the immediate vicinity of Zara and then return to work. Although I'm in no hurry to get back to work, I understand that our common funds will run out sooner or later. In this regard, I am thinking about how you manage to provide for your pension. Life in Jamaica is a more affordable way of life, allowing me to lead a simpler existence, devoid of unnecessary material values and luxury items that we are used to here. It is thanks to such an uncomplicated lifestyle that I find satisfaction. I will be able to live comfortably in this place without resorting to savings and without selling shares. I will be financially stable. In addition, when we sell this house, we will have $1 million that we can divide among ourselves. By the way, have you seen Zara? Although I haven't seen her, I had a long phone conversation with her this morning. During our conversation, I made her a promise, which I hope you will help me fulfill. I assured Zara that we would attend her wedding as a couple. It is very important for me that nothing spoils Zara's special day. By the way, about the wedding, do you happen to know when Leo will arrive? He's due to arrive next Wednesday, and I was planning to meet him at DFW Airport, but if you want, you can take this task on yourself. I was hoping that you would prefer to stay here in the house. I would love to accompany you to the airport to meet the summer. It's been over a year since we last saw him, and it might be better if we greet him together. It would mean a lot to me. Considering that this is a spacious house, would you also like to stay here? It would be wonderful to gather everyone under one roof again, especially since we will be hosting a reception here after the wedding. A large table will be set up on Monday, and the caterers will prepare all the dishes and drinks. And that's how it all unfolded. Freya and I were able to re-establish relations as before the incident. We could talk without any anger. There was a sense of rationality in our relationship. Working tirelessly together, we diligently coordinated Zara's wedding, and Leo's help was a real blessing for us. On the eve of the wedding, Zara decided to stay in our house, where we keenly felt the hidden tension. But the opportunity to gather the whole family for the last time was of great importance for all of us. We understood that our cherished home would soon be lost, and we would lose the opportunity to spend time together. Zara's wedding went flawlessly, and her radiance left me feeling like I was saying goodbye to my own daughter. I was well aware that her husband was in great demand, but in my heart, I quietly hoped that he would understand what a precious stone Zara is. The scent of fresh flowers was in the air, and champagne flowed in an endless stream throughout the evening. We were lucky enough to invite one of the best bands from Dallas, and the dance floor remained lively until early Sunday morning. Freya and I practically did not leave the dance floor, moving synchronously almost all night. I assured Zara that we would be an amazing couple, and I think we didn't disappoint anyone. Freya looked absolutely amazing, and I, as in the past, felt a natural attraction to her. The combination of alcohol and the emotions that overwhelmed me left me feeling slightly intoxicated and insecure. Tomorrow morning, I may regret my action. Freya's words took me by surprise when she suddenly spoke. You know, Roy, if we go to bed together today, it won't just be a dream. Confused by her unexpected offer, I asked her, "What's wrong, Freya?" She begged me, just once, for the good old days, please. Unfortunately, I had to refuse. Freya, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. I know you have someone else. Disbelief overwhelmed me. I left Freya in tears, hurriedly packed my bag, and drove to the Holiday Inn. The next morning, I woke up to the ringing of a mobile phone, on the other end of which was my son. "Dad, what did you say to Mom yesterday?" She cried all night. With a heavy heart, I found myself in an awkward position, but I had to be honest with my son. "Son, it's hard for me to say, but your mom is still in an intimate relationship with someone else. Now I feel unhappy. I know you're flying back today. I'll be there in 2 hours to take you to the airport. But I don't want your mother to accompany us. I don't want to see her." After staying here for 3 more days, I eventually returned to Jamaica. Sam received an offer from the hospital to settle the matter out of court. The amount of the offer was $500,000, but we met $750,000 after taxes and Sam's fee. Thus, I had $500,000 left, which would be very profitable. I said goodbye to everyone except Freya and boarded the plane, ready for the next chapter of my life. Everything in my life was fine. I took the opportunity to renovate my cozy bungalow and even managed to buy a used Jeep. My habits of running on the beach and basking in the sun have remained unchanged. From time to time, I received a pleasant surprise in the form of a letter or a postcard from one of my children. But one day, I got a letter from Sam that really caught my attention. Sam gave me the latest news, including that my divorce was completed successfully and I found the long-awaited freedom. In addition, Freya's lawsuits with the hospital were crowned with success, resulting in a remarkable agreement worth $5 million. Alexander, burdened with an unaffordable million-dollar debt, had no choice but to declare bankruptcy. Congratulations to Freya on securing a stable financial future. Sam mentioned that the house was sold, and most of the furniture was sent to the warehouse. However, there was no information about Freya's current situation and her well-being, which did not really bother me. Even though she had hurt me in the past, I knew she wouldn't get a second chance. Zara gave me the news about once a month, but her only message was that Mom was fine and I shouldn't worry. I was worried that Zara might have given up on me. As for Leo, he was not very consistent in communication, but I was not worried since he led an active social life. After a few blissful months, a sense of humanity returned to me, and I again burned with the desire to be in the presence of a captivating woman again. Conveniently, there were busy shopping areas of the island very close by, where numerous well-known resorts were located, attracting a variety of middle-aged women for various purposes. At these resorts, incendiary dances were held 3 or 4 times a week, which provided me with ample opportunities to communicate with attractive ladies. As a rule, these meetings were preceded by an evening of incendiary dancing and enjoying fine wine, and it was during one of these meetings that I met Dolly, a small woman. They were 5 petite women with brunette hair and deep blue eyes. Among them was Dolly, an investment broker looking for respite from the constant stress of the stock market and the daily pressures associated with managing people's finances. Trying to relax, we plunged into a night filled with dancing and an abundance of wine. The music continued to play when Dolly, wanting a breath of fresh air, asked me to go outside with her. When we were walking slowly along the beach, she suddenly turned to me and gently kissed me on the lips. A conversation ensued, and soon I found out that she had been living at the resort for a month. Taking the opportunity, I offered to show her the wonders of the island. Naturally, our acquaintance ended with a visit to my bungalow, where our connection became even deeper. Dolly was very frank when it came to her intimate experience, and openly admitted that she had had many partners in her life. Despite the fact that she is 38 years old, she has not tied the knot and has not had children, because she has not yet met the perfect couple. And although she is still not sure that she will have children, finding the right person, and creating a stable life, was a priority for her. During the whole month Dolly lived exclusively with me in my bungalow, making only short trips to the resort for extra clothes. The connection I felt with Dolly was unlike anything I had experienced before. Although we never openly confessed our feelings, there was an unspoken connection between us that conveyed our emotions without verbal confirmation. When her 30-day vacation was coming to an end, none of us wanted to darken the atmosphere by talking about the inevitable separation. On the eve of Dolly's departure, we moved her things to her room at the resort. In the evening, as it often happens before the departure of a large number of people, dances were organized. Being avid dancers, we naturally took part in this event. When the music started and our bodies were covered with perspiration, my gaze suddenly fell on my ex-wife sitting at the other end of the room. In the booth, they were doing various things, anything, just not hiding. Dolly quickly caught something wrong and asked me about it. I just told her that I noticed my ex at the other end of the hall, who was engaged in inappropriate behavior with her, as it turned out, long-gone boyfriend. Feeling the need to sort out the situation, I confided in Dolly, and together we went to their booth. "Freya, it looks like my suspicions were correct, and you haven't stopped dating this man," I said. Freya pushed David away in fright and hastily straightened her dress. "What brings you here? What is it?" she asked. "I live here. Have you forgotten? You assured me that your affair was over and that you no longer wanted to meet this man. What's going on now? Were all your previous words lies?" David got out of the cab and tried to push me. "You have no right to decide with whom and what your ex-wife does." "Yes, we continued our relationship secretly. Yes, I had suspicions, but I don't like being cheated and lied to. My bishop and my ex-wife are guilty of this. Once we were deeply in love with each other and would never resort to lying. I can only hold you responsible for changing the woman I once adored. Perhaps I should have foreseen this outcome, but I was blind to the signs." In an instant, he easily lifted me up with one hand, and what followed remained in my memory. I collapsed to the floor. Bouncers quickly surrounded the table and Dolly was telling how this man viciously attacked me. Numerous witnesses confirmed her story. The rescue service was called, and I, who had lost consciousness, was rushed to the hospital. The coming morning brought with it a vague awakening. As soon as I came to my senses, the police interviewed me for charges, to which I readily agreed. Throughout this ordeal, Dolly was by my side and provided me with unwavering support. Dolly, the past 30 days have been an unprecedented event for me, filled with happiness and dear memories. I have never experienced such great joy and deep connection with another person before. I must admit that I have fallen deeply in love with you. I beg you to stay by my side, leaving your old job and life. I may not have huge wealth, but we have enough of it to lead a comfortable existence and never work again. I have strong feelings for you, but I need time to think about the idea of giving up everything. Some part of me wants to say yes, but there are some issues that I need to resolve before making such commitments. Can you understand my situation? Take your time, dear. You know where to find me." Dolly said goodbye to me with a kiss and hurried to her flight. It seemed to me that the second love of my life had just left me. I stayed in the hospital for 2 days, knowing that Alexander had been released on bail and was facing imprisonment. With a small suitcase in my hands, I returned to Dallas to consult with a lawyer. Sam was delighted to see me, but when he noticed the bruises on my body, he quickly went into shock. "Roy, what brought you to civilization?" he asked with obvious concern in his voice. Realizing that I needed legal advice, I reminded him of the small compensation I had received from the hospital. Sam nodded, remembering that he was talking about the sum of $750,000. He was curious, and he asked why I was interested in whether my ex-wife Freya was entitled to half of this amount in accordance with the law on common property. I explained that, despite the fact that at the time of the settlement agreement our marriage was technically unbreakable, I was not sure that she could claim any part of this amount. Sam confirmed that by law, she is entitled to half, but noted that her own payout amount is a staggering $5 million. Perplexed, he asked why she needed to take half of my amount at all. Shrugging my shoulders, I confessed, I do not know whether she is interested or not in my settlement. I ask you to pay me half of the amount, because initially I was not against her keeping it for herself. I believed that she had ended her relationship with her former boss and agreed to all the conditions that I put forward. Unfortunately, I recently found out that she continued to date him even after our separation and before the divorce. Turns out she is still dating him. Now I insist on getting my share. I informed Sam of her whereabouts, and he immediately went to Jamaica to personally hand over the necessary documents to Freya. When Sam returned, he informed me that she had already spent a significant part of the money received under the settlement agreement. Reluctantly, she wrote out the check. I stayed in the company of Zara and her husband, talking about my discoveries. Zara expressed her suspicions, although her mother categorically denied the fact of meeting with David. I asked if she really goes to counseling or meets with her secret lover. I was sure in advance. The next day, Sam returned with good news. Freya reluctantly agreed to split the money, deducting her part from mine. I went back to Jamaica, but when I arrived at my bungalow, I found Dolly sitting on the terrace. She announced her intention to stay, saying, "If you can tolerate me, I will stay here. Do you agree to marry me despite the fact that I am already an old man?" Without any hesitation, she answered in the affirmative. And so Dolly and I, surrounded by several of her closest friends, tied the knot. Our life together was filled with happiness and satisfaction. Unfortunately, Freya, who spent a significant part of the money received under the contract, was forced to return to work and could not find a long-term relationship. As for David Alexander, he served a year in prison, and after his release, a gloomy future awaited him with the stigma of a criminal, bankrupt, and divorced. And a year later, Zara told me that her mother struggles with alcoholism and behaves in an inappropriate way. Namely, when Freya gets drunk, she dresses too provocatively and tries to meet young guys. Apparently, my wife has problems not only with alcoholism, but also with her head. Apparently, she can't understand in any way that she is already old, and no young man will want a relationship with her. My wife and I lived together for a total of 5 years, of which 4 years were devoted to our marriage. Our relationship is not limited to this, it covers several years preceding the conclusion of the marriage union. As a result of our union, we have a wonderful 4-year-old child. Throughout this time, I was the main breadwinner in our family, while my wife made the decision to be a devoted stay-at-home mother, deciding not to return to work. But in the last year and a half we have often disagreed, monthly entering into disagreements. I want to emphasize that I take an active part in the upbringing of our daughter, as well as cleaning and cooking. I am completely dedicated to both of them. The first mention of divorce arose during a quarrel when my sister asked to temporarily stay with us because of her own difficulties in the relationship, which is quite ironic. I agreed to her request, but unfortunately, my wife did not respond positively to it. In response, I told about a previous case when her friend lived with us for 5 weeks, showing minimal participation in household chores. This was in stark contrast to my sister's enthusiasm and her close bond with our daughter, and I assumed my wife felt the same way. However, to my surprise, she stayed with us for a whole week, actively helping with the housework, cooking, keeping clean and even caring for her daughter. As necessary, it seemed to me that we mutually forgive each other and successfully overcome our conflicts. The disagreements that arise as a rule are connected with trifles, and surprisingly, about 90% of these disagreements do not come from me. I have repeatedly suggested to her the idea of going to a therapist, but she has consistently rejected it, insisting that such interventions are unnecessary for our relationship. Nevertheless, last night marked a significant shift in our dynamics. Starting to quarrel, she accused me of spending too much time at work, expressed a sense of neglect, and questioned my abilities as a father. Her outburst reached its climax when she announced her desire to divorce. At that critical moment, I gathered all my strength to face the situation face to face. I explained that my busy work schedule is largely a consequence of the fact that she stubbornly and wastefully spends our common money. As for the essentials, I want to clarify that during the quarrel I mistakenly called the money exclusively mine. However, it is important to note that earlier we agreed to allocate funds for the payment of general bills, future expenses, the future of our daughter, and free spending. Despite my sincere attempts, my wife did not look for a job or education to ease our financial burden. As a result, I took responsibility for providing for our family. I have always considered it my priority to be close to our daughter, ensuring my presence during all significant moments, important events, visits to the doctor, and everything that she may need. Unfortunately, my wife does not want to seek help or support from psychotherapists or consultants. This has led me to the point that I no longer want to stay in this situation. I informed her of my desire to ask a lawyer to send her the divorce papers as soon as they are ready. After collecting my daughter's things, I decided to leave, taking her to her sister. 2 days have passed, and she does not stop calling and writing, expressing her deep regret. She admits that her hurtful words were not sincere, and is now ready to consider canceling our plans and contacting a therapist. She stresses that she desperately needs me, wants our connection to be restored, and much more. Despite strong feelings for her and recognition of her as a good mother, I am at a crossroads. I've reached a breaking point and I don't know what to do next. I was greatly influenced by her behavior, which was very similar to the attitude towards our house as a hotel where cleanliness is not observed. It is worth noting that in our family there is a rule never to mention the word divorce. I'm trying to understand her true intentions. Is her unhappiness sincere, or is she deliberately seeking a reaction from me? I'm genuinely not sure of her motives. I don't resort to anger, shouting, or violence. I am confused by what she suffers from me. During our dispute, the word divorce was heard for the first time. I basically said that if divorce is what she thinks will bring her happiness, then maybe that's the only possible solution. As a result, I decided to pack my things and move in with my daughter. She may be suppressing various emotions, which now result in unexpected outbursts directed at me. There are several factors that can contribute to this situation. Some people, especially stubborn ones, may resist the idea of going to a therapist. In addition, many people experiencing depression may not even realize it, as a result of which they may feel lost and confused. It is worth talking about how emotionally draining and personality-changing the work of a mother can be, which can be one of the main sources of her difficulties. It might be worth considering starting a therapeutic journey together. Under certain circumstances, divorce may be deemed necessary, although it should not be an immediate solution to the problem. It is important to convey to her the negative consequences of constantly talking about divorce without good reason. Probably, it is necessary to abandon the extreme opinions promoting divorce and recognize that each situation is individual. Perhaps our relationship will be restored, and if not, then over time I will come to this understanding. It seems that she is squandering or mismanaging our common funds. Maybe it's better to use our money instead of your money. Such a distinction may inadvertently contribute to her negative reaction. Marriage inherently involves pooling resources, not individual ownership. If she worked, a significant part of her income could be used to pay for childcare services. The choice of words may subtly hint that she does not have the privilege to spend money freely. As for her desire, it doesn't seem to really belong to her. In addition, there is a possibility that I unwittingly cause her suffering by certain actions. That is why therapy can be useful, because it allows you to make constructive progress. Even if the end result is a divorce, it takes time for positive changes to become apparent. In a similar situation, I decided to take my daughter with me. In addition, I actively supported and encouraged my wife to participate in various activities such as job search, hobbies, making new friends, and finding new opportunities. I constantly recommended her to seek professional help, but unfortunately, she invariably rejected all my suggestions, answering with a firm no. I claim that the root of the problems is not in her, but in the well-being of my daughter. I wholeheartedly strive to create a harmonious environment for her, which implies the absence of conflicts with my wife in her presence. Remembering my own difficult upbringing, marked by the constant quarrels of my parents, the departure of my mother, and the dissatisfaction of my father directed at me, I am determined to protect my daughter from such experiences. Although the reasons for my self-doubt remain unclear, my desire for my daughter's happiness remains unshakable. That evening I had to make a difficult decision regarding my wife's intentions. The well-being of our daughters was at stake, and I couldn't risk exposing them to possible shocks. It is important to understand that seeking help cannot be forced or compared with the actions of another person. True motivation must come from within, as simple pressure on a person leads to submission without genuine transformation. I also recognize my role in the current situation, and am determined to convey to my daughters that such behavior is unacceptable. I am determined to break the vicious circle of unhealthy relationships that I witnessed as a child. From a very young age I was determined not to imitate the behavior I observed from my father. I took some time to think about the situation. It became obvious that I needed to emphasize the seriousness of the situation to my wife. We had an open and honest conversation in which I said that I could no longer put up with this state of affairs. The endless cycle of quarrels and the imminent danger of divorce had to end, and she recognized and accepted this condition. I have clearly stated that if such a threat is made again, it will mean the end of our relationship. Together we decided to start therapy, which allowed us to take a fresh look at the situation. During therapy sessions, we openly discussed our emotions and received valuable advice from professionals, understanding each other more deeply. There has been clear progress in our relationship, as my wife has begun to make more efforts. She took the initiative in finding a job, made new friendships, and even took up a new hobby. In general, our path was characterized by growth and transformation, and I was optimistic about what lay ahead. But the situation took a different turn when disagreements turned into a conflict about our daughter and our plans for her. She seemed to have forgotten about our previous arrangement and could not hide that she had committed herself to new colleagues. When the argument was coming to an end, she muttered softly, "I knew marrying you was a mistake." I was stunned, but I was even more surprised by how unrecognizable she looked. It was as if she had turned into a completely different person before my eyes. I could not understand what kind of woman was standing in front of me, and I asked her to repeat what she had said. In response, she expressed regret that she should have dissolved our marriage a long time ago. Without saying a word, I turned around and left, bringing our daughter to the planned event on my own. After that, I took the initiative to start legal registration of the divorce. We both agreed that we maintain marital status for the time of separation, but refrain from any romantic relationships with each other. In addition, we decided to split our finances. The existing payment scheme will remain unchanged, which will me to maintain insurance coverage at my place of work. In addition, the agreement required regular therapy sessions, both individual and for the couple. As part of this agreement, I will move to live with my sister, and we will share custody of our daughter, distributing 70% to me and 30% to her. On a prearranged day when I needed my wife to take responsibility for our daughter in accordance with the previously reached agreement, I arrived at the house in the morning. Noticing an unfamiliar car parked at the entrance, I couldn't help but ask if my wife had invited a friend or a new acquaintance. Suppressing my surprise, I plucked up the politeness and pressed the doorbell, feeling a strange sense of strangeness from doing this in my own house. To my surprise, a shirtless young man in his mid-20s opened the door and began asking me about my identity and goals. Nervous, I asked where my wife was. He immediately called her, and when she appeared around the corner, the initial curiosity was quickly replaced by shock. This process began with horror, then turned into sadness. As a result, it became clear that after the expiration of the 3-month period of legal separation, I will take the necessary steps to file an application for the dissolution of our marriage. Despite the chaos, I am still thinking about the welfare and safety of our daughter. Although she may not fully understand all the subtleties of the situation, she is well aware that her parents are unhappy together. I strive to provide her with stability and happiness. I found myself in a situation that I promised myself I would never find myself in, which I swore I would never repeat. But it seems that circumstances have directed me in this direction. I unwittingly followed in the footsteps of my parents. The concept of a thriving relationship seems unattainable to me now, but my only goal is to show great love for my daughter and strive to become the best parent I can be. I am often not sure that I really understand her because I am only familiar with those aspects of her personality that she willingly demonstrates. I sincerely hope that I am guiding my daughter to a full life. Instead of truly accepting marriage and cherishing love and relationships, my wife seems to be using them for her own hidden purposes. The decision to take my daughter away from this toxic environment was very important. Unfortunately, I have to be prepared for the fact that in the future, I will have to conduct litigation. It seems that right now my wife's main goal is to flaunt her new partner to provoke my reaction. It is possible that my actions may be subjected to a thorough analysis with possible attempts to find evidence that could weaken my position. These may be claims for the recovery of alimony, child custody, alimony payments, and other related issues. I propose to calculate 125% of the number of payments recommended by the state and make a budget to prepare. I have already consulted my lawyer, and it is obvious that this will be a serious legal dispute. I expect that many of the terms of the divorce will repeat the conditions set out in the decision on the separation of the spouses, with a significant emphasis on the sale of the house, the division of property, and the establishment of financial order. In the end, I hope that over time my daughter will understand the validity of my choice. I want her to understand that continuing an unhealthy relationship is not necessary, and that my decision to stay in such circumstances was not necessary. During the separation, she introduced me to another man, which raised suspicions of her possible connection with him, or that she used the separation as a disguise for an affair. Although this is just a guess, it seems plausible. It is important to note that the legislation on divorce in different states may differ, so it is advisable to familiarize yourself with the legal details specific to our jurisdiction. In order to give preference to your daughter's well-being and needs, rather than keeping in touch with your ex-wife, it may be worth blocking her number and using the app for parents. In addition, it is very important to invest in self-improvement, and weightlifting and fitness classes can significantly improve physical and mental health. A comprehensive approach to self-improvement is a worthy undertaking, especially considering my age. When I asked to call my wife, her supposed lover was surprised. His reaction was something like this: "I didn't know she was married." After a short pause he added, "I'm sorry, brother." It turned out that he was not aware of the situation. I am currently staying with my sister. Apparently, my wife may be experiencing emotional difficulties inherent in women who feel dissatisfied in a relationship. Apparently she felt deprived of attention, which may have led to excessive spending and one-night stands. It is likely that she was looking for attention and companionship from other men who seemed more attractive to her. Given her constant talk of divorce and feelings of regret about marriage, it is possible that she believes she deserves a more suitable partner. However, I believe that after the divorce, she may realize the real consequences of her actions in dealing with various men. Despite the fact that I was responsible for raising my only daughter, I was the main breadwinner, which apparently gave her the opportunity to show infidelity. As they say, an idle mind can lead to trouble. Perhaps things could have turned out differently if we had decided to separate earlier. The positive thing is that her employment could free me from the obligation to pay alimony or child support. A month later we divorced. Most of the time my daughter spent with me living with my sister with me. We decided to sell the house and split the money. I also had to pay alimony to my ex-wife. My ex-wife did not regret our breakup at all, which upset me very much. There were times when she was supposed to pick up our daughter, but she didn't come. She just forgot to pick up the baby because she was having a good time with another boyfriend. I was shocked by her behavior and this attitude towards our daughter. I tried not to take my daughter to my ex-wife if she didn't remember about her. The situation came to the point that one day my ex-wife did not come for her daughter. Neve, the day when she was supposed to pick her up, neither the next nor a week later nor a month later. 5 months have passed since that day and she has not appeared. A month after her disappearance I went to the police and wrote a statement about the disappearance of my daughter's mother, but they haven't found her yet. Maybe she went abroad or something happened, but her absence only pleases me. My daughter and I live quietly. I try to give her everything and even more. I hope that my ex-wife will never show up again.